That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. And we will leave you with I can't do it. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks. That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks again for watching. We'll leave you with Sting and cut off his new album.
How are you doing? This is another Auto United video. This one goes out to Direct D. You're doing some great work out there, but try and keep your ass out of some trouble there. And I'll explain to you how and why you should challenge jurisdiction and why you failed when you tried it. Okay, let's begin. This is I counseled this person. I explained to him how to do this process. Motions are a joke. They're just futile. Yes, you should put in motions, and the judges don't care. They're just gonna. It's democracy. It's you, the prosecutor, and the judge voting on which way to go. You lose. You put it out of their hands. I'll explain later. Here's a video of the demonstration of it in use.
Good morning.
Let's see. Siding with failure to exercise due care. Guilty or not guilty?
Before we can proceed in this matter, Your Honor, is there evidence of authority of claim or jurisdiction in this matter?
What's your plea, sir? Guilty or not guilty of failure to exercise due care?
Your Honor, I don't understand. Isn't there a matter I've raised that still needs to be addressed about jurisdiction?
Just have a seat, sir. We'll come back to you.
Okay. In the end, this person wins. But what they did do wrong is they didn't use an objection. Objection is a due process mechanism that needs to be handled. If you would have put that same exact thing in the form of an objection, then you're allowed to appeal it. But this won't even go to an appeal because when you're objecting to jurisdiction, he cannot answer his own jurisdictional challenge. It has to go to the prosecutor or the cop or the complainant or whoever. He can't even answer it. And if he does answer it, he's practicing law behind the bench. He can't put facts and evidence. He's there to make decisions and make sure that you understand the procedure in front of you. And that's why he keeps repeating, I don't understand. That's a procedural thing to force him to keep answering questions. And he knows he can't. This judge isn't stupid. Most judges are. The ones you're dealing with is a fucking moron. Excuse my language. Is a moron. And you should have handled him. And I'll show you how. I'll show you the case law after this is over with.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Get that back to me. So, I've got a failure to exercise due care. I'm guilty or not guilty?
As I said, before we can proceed in this matter, the state or the city has not produced evidence for their claim of authority or jurisdiction for this court.
So you are not going to cooperate with the court?
Your Honor, I object to that. I am here, I am appearing, and I don't understand the charges in this matter. There is no evidence of jurisdiction. If there's evidence of jurisdiction, could you please place it into the record?
Okay, so he's asking for it to be placed in the record, but there's no one there to answer it. The judge can't do it. This judge is smart. this has to be done by the prosecutor. What he is doing wrong is he's not saying objection, Your Honor. You have to say objection, Your Honor. In case law, on appeals, you have to use that exact verbiage, or else they can just deny you.
Let's see.
That's 3 counts of challenging jurisdiction.
What I'm going to do, Ms. Earth has dismissed this case. The officer's not here to testify, and you're not willing to cooperate. So we're just going to dismiss it.
These nuts. Got him!
Dun-dun-dun. I mean, it's really that simple. So, let's go over to the case law. Okay, so that officer wasn't there. It wouldn't matter if that officer was there. We all know they're retarded. They don't know law, and they sure as hell don't know why they have jurisdiction. Your jurisdiction, this is in a municipal court, and most of the time you're going to be in a municipal court, and they're corporations. And in order to have your consent and have jurisdiction, that is consent. You have to have a contract with them. And they have to prove that you consent to be there. You are consenting to be there by showing up. This is why they win. But when you challenge jurisdiction, they have to prove that you consented. I know that it all has to do with business and contracts. These lower courts are corporate courts. They are not common law courts, and they don't work the same. There's no jury here. This is a magistrate. This is not a judge. These are things that you need to understand, but it's a long... I can't pack 20 years of knowledge into one little thing, but I'll do my best. Okay, let's go into jurisdiction and challenging jurisdiction. This person, I don't know, this website, I use it all the time because it's got all the case law on it. You can read what it says here, but what I've done is I've shrunk down the process to such a simple thing that it's, you don't even need to know what you're doing. But it's good to know what you're doing, and here's the case law. A judgment rendered by a court without personal jurisdiction over the defendant is void and null. So when you're putting in a motion, you're asking the judge to make a decision, and of course, he's going to decide that he has all the power in the world. Now, when you do it in a objection, now he knows that it's going to be challenged. It's directly challenging his authority, and it can only be answered by a higher power. So if only a higher court can decide, and he doesn't want to get scrutinized. Okay, a court cannot confer jurisdiction where there is none. Now, if you don't have a contract with these people, and this is what they have to prove, is that they have a contract with you, and there has to be a jury. They say there's case law that says that they don't have to have a jury, but that's because it's a contract. It doesn't apply. You don't have to bow down to these corporate courts because they lack jurisdiction. Okay, it's clear they can't continue after it's been challenged. You do this in a motion, and they'll ignore you. You do this on record, and you shut the whole thing down. There's no discretion to ignore lack of jurisdiction. These are U.S. Supreme Courts. These are not, like district courts or like lower state courts. Courts must prove on record jurisdiction facts related and asserted. It has to go on record. They cannot continue until it goes on record. Then when you ask the judge to make a decision by a motion, he's just going to say yes or no based on what's in record. And the cop saying, hey, I have jurisdiction, is good enough for him. But they have to prove it. So once you've made this objection, the ball's now in their court, and a judge can't answer anything, or it's a high misdemeanor practicing law behind the bench. Law provides that once a state and federal jurisdiction has been challenged, it must be proven. When you're doing a motion, how is it proven? It's not. That's not how it works, and this is why you do it with an objection. A jurisdiction can be challenged at any time. You can be in appeals, you could have been sentenced, and you can challenge jurisdiction after you've already paid the price. It doesn't matter. They can't say, hey, it's too early, you're going to have to put in a motion to do that. And no, you can say, objection, Your Honor, please provide evidence that this court has jurisdiction over me. You want to keep it as vague as possible. Defense of lack of jurisdiction subject matter be raised at any time, even on appeal, right? Like, okay, once jurisdiction has been challenged, it cannot be assumed. It must be proved. Now, the prosecutor must prove they have jurisdiction over you, but watch this. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among those rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent, aka a contract, of the governed. Do you have a contract with that municipal corporation? Is this traffic court? Did you get a license, a driver's license, and sign a contract with them? Okay, this doesn't apply to the driver's license thing, and the contract doesn't apply to common law crimes where there's a victim and a jury. This has to do with these crap municipal courts that have no jurisdiction. Okay, let's get back to where we were. Okay, there's no discretion to ignore lack of jurisdiction. Burden shifts to the court to prove it. But if a judge says one word, say, objection, Your Honor, you've now practiced law behind the bench and violated due process. Please provide evidence that you can continue. And you do that 3 times. Every time they try and continue, you do that 3 times, and that case is over. Jurisdiction is the fundamental and judgment rendered by a court that does not have jurisdiction. It is void in abinito. I'm assuming that means doesn't exist. Thus, where judicial tribunal has no jurisdiction, so those courts are ad hoc, administerial meetings with a magistrate. They're very similar to a tribunal, but they're corporate. These proceedings are absolutely void at the fullest sense of term. A court has no jurisdiction to determine its own jurisdiction. This is why you don't do a motion. A judge is just going to say yes, but if you have this written down in an affidavit and you just hand it into the court, and most courts are going to want it within 24 hours, and others are going to say, hey, we just don't accept them. That's a whole nother story. But for basic issues of any case before a tribunal is power to act, and the court must have the authority to decide the question in the first instance. You can't bring up an instance where you're trying to make a judge decide his own power. It's biased. Of course he's going to say yes. Court failed to observe the safeguards. It amounts to the denial of due process. And when you get denial of due process, when a judge tells you you can't speak, say, objection, Your Honor, you've now violated my rights to due process and tampering with a witness. Please provide evidence that this court can violate my rights and continue. Very, very simple to do. They lose jurisdiction when the moment they violate due process and when they tell you can't speak. Okay, when a judge gets angry at you, says, let the record show that the judge has now become hostile and is tampering with a witness. Please objection, Your Honor. Please provide evidence that you can tamper with a witness, violate due process, and continue. You're going to have to use the three method here. He's going to say, well, I didn't do that, and he'll probably try and change the record. And then you just say, let the record show that the judge is tampering with the record. He's going to get pissed again. And then he's going to try and intimidate you. He's going to send his little cohorts over there with the guns to go stand with you. Say, let the record show the judge has now sent men with guns to intimidate me. This is tampering with a witness. Objection, Your Honor. Please provide evidence that you can tamper with a witness and not violate due process and continue this hearing. Please place that on record. There's my evidence to say that you were doing it wrong. It does work. Try it again. Stop these guys. Stop these judges. When they violate your rights, object and say they violated your rights. They violated due process, and stop them. And they're going to do deflection, in a million different ways. And you just got to be able to be mentally capable to handle this. And then when you make these objections, hand these affidavits in. Make copies of them, because everyone's going to want to see them. And they have to be refuted. There's no way you're going to get a prosecutor or a judge or a police officer have evidence on hand to prove that courts don't have to prove jurisdiction. That's just silly. Direct D, you're doing a great job. I hope this helps.